listening to Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vivek.
Newspapers and everything. This is news in 1992. Much protested Mount Erie AIDS capital. 3 years prior, nonprofit wanted to convert the approved nursing home to the region's first care facility. NPR comes from this station and from Aspiration, working to help people combat climate change with a credit card that lets them plant a tree. One card, zero carbon footprint. Aspiration.com/credit. Aspiration Financial LLC. And from Newton, personalized weight loss program based in psychology. Change their habits, conquer their life. Learn more at Noon. NOON.com.
This is Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vivek. In his book, The Enemies of Choice, the psychologist Eric Johnson explores the world of choice architecture. He tells why we fail to see that our decisions can be subtly biased by the way choices are presented to us. He also examines how we routinely present choices to others in ways that are presented visitors with an online agreement. It was very long, very inside the terms of service agreement was a very unusual clause. Here's how the researcher Jonathan Obar described the clause to me.
What we did is we went to the extreme and we included this a firstborn clause, suggesting that if you agreed to these policies, that as a form of payment you'd be giving up firstborn child, and 98% of the participants that took the study didn't even notice this particular clause.
So nearly every single person agreed to hand over their firstborn child in exchange for access to the new social media platform. Now, obviously, the researchers were not looking to steal people's kids, but it's an astonishing example of how people can be led to make bad decisions. Eric, I want to look at the different mechanisms at play in choice architecture, and I want to start with the idea that when the right choice involves wading through a lot of difficult material, people often make the wrong choice.
I think that's true. In fact, a new observation is that people make decisions early on when they're making a choice about how to make that choice. They actually are doing what I think of is choosing a positive path to how to make the decision. When we do that, we often are very, very sensitive to how much effort is involved, particularly at the beginning. So you go, you want to join this brand new media service, you're excited, and it says, first, read all this, and that could be 10,000 words, and then click here. It's not a surprise that most people don't.
In 2013, here the stakes are really significant, and they were real. Can you describe to me what happened when the website went public out?
One of the things that was interesting is there were a lot of decisions that a choice architect would have to make in designing the site. So, for example, There were sites that had only 8 options. Other states had sites which had 160 options. The thing that's interesting is that it's a hard decision because you have 3 things you need to think about if you're interested in cost. The deductible, which is how much you pay every time you use the doctor. There is a co-payment, and then there's a premium. And people can't do the math of adding those 3 up. So what we did is a set of studies where we actually had people say, find the cheapest insurance, and almost everybody couldn't. They just can't do the math, and as a result, they were making choices that actually cost, on average, hundreds of dollars more than they should.
And of course, when you multiply this out over millions of people across an entire nation, the costs actually become quite astronomical.
Our estimate was $9 billion of excess premiums being paid.
So you talked a second ago about how people have a strong impulse to follow the path of least resistance. Another place where this affects us is when we go shopping. Can you paint me a picture of the lengths that companies go to seek the right placement for their products in bookstores and on grocery shelves?
Not everybody knows this. There's actually payments that companies will give to supermarkets to put products in favored positions. For example, it turns out just below eye level, you're much more likely to sell than if you're, say, for example, at knee level. And the mechanism seems to be people are very sensitive to the little bit of effort it might take to kneel down. Imagine you have a child in your cart and you're rolling down and you want to get done. The last thing you want to do is read labels at levels that are very low. You grab and go.
And this is true across all forms of commerce. So companies like Google, for example, and other companies like Apple, to come pre-installed on iPhones and iPads. Now, anyone can navigate over to Google, but having it pre-installed makes the choice a tiny bit easier. And this turns out to make a big difference.
It turns out that, in fact, very few people actually make the shift from Google, let's say, to Microsoft Bing or any other website, if in fact it's stick with that. So that stickiness is because we don't want to spend the time to actually 3 or 4 clicks or touches that would take us to change what this default search option is.
I'm reminded of a study by Raluca Ursu at New York University. She looked at how people picked hotel accommodations on Expedia. You've cited this in your book. Do you remember what she found?
It was actually quite striking because it's one of the cases where we know the data that would have normally been known by the company. And I should point out that Expedia makes most of its money from hotel rooms when we think of them as flights and rental cars, but a big part of the revenue is hotel rooms. 50% still 30%. And they can do it with lots of orders. So the question we're looking at is how important it is to be in first, second, third, etc. And what she found was basically the first one actually got a share that was 50% more than if it was second.
Wow. We talked earlier about the car insurance options offered by New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I want to go back to that example in a little more detail to see why so many customers picked the cheaper insurance in New Jersey but failed to do so in Pennsylvania. Can you explain to me what they saw, what was different about their choices that prompted them to make the right decision in one state and the wrong decision in another?
Well, I think one of the big things is ease. I mean, it turns out that the forms, I saw it if I was there, were in tiny print on onion skin paper, and I would have to, in theory, read that to understand what's going on, check a box, and send that in, and then the effort